Okay. Hello. Welcome everybody to Read Write Book Club. I'm Sam. Uh, so we had we're having a little bit of audio stuff today. That's fine.
Okay. And I'm Brendan, and I forgot to unmute myself, and I cleaned my beard. Yes. Accurate. Yeah, for some reason, Google Hangouts doesn't deal with the headphones properly. For some reason, I don't know. It's the only thing that doesn't.
Yeah, I've seen that a bunch of times. Like anytime I change a setting, it just decides, you know, like I'm not going to work at all, and you got to turn it all the way off and back on again.
Yeah.
That's Google Hangouts for you. So aside from not knowing why any of this stuff works, so I guess if we want to take a minute, let people kind of drift in here.
Sure.
But yeah, so we put it up, or Brendan posted up a video of the French performance art group called La Machine.
Yeah, La Machine.
Did you want to talk about that a little
Sure.
bit for a second?
It's something we talked about on the Input Output sister podcast there last week. But oh my god,
we talked
was
about
that cool.
We talked about it coming to town. It hadn't happened yet.
Right. Yeah, we talked about it coming to town, but oh man, it was way cooler than I thought it would be. Like, and I thought it was gonna be cool. So like, it was kind of next level. It's very much like a performance art. Like they were doing vignettes and like they had scenes and interactions between the two creatures and stuff. And the crowds were insane. Like it was so ridiculous.
Just to be clear, it's two huge hydraulic marionettes essentially.
Yeah.
They're like, 3 stories tall. One's a giant spider and the other one is a horse dragon.
Horse dragon, yeah.
And the dragon breathes fire, and the both of them shot like steam and water.
It was absolutely insane. They had like all these speakers like set up on the body of the creatures, and they had like wireless systems passing between all of them. And they had like a live band playing. So the dragon had like a DJ on the back, and then there was a live band playing for the spider.
Well, that was one of the coolest things, was even the parts that weren't the creature itself were like an element of sculpture attached to the vehicle.
Yeah.
Like, it had those wrought iron staircases that went up the side, and just like nothing. Everything was detail.
Oh man, it's great because the DJ was like waving at people in the buildings and stuff as they went by, and they were all wearing costumes.
Like steampunk kind of outfits.
It was sweet. Best 20 minutes of my life.
And it's free. They just were wandering around downtown for 4 days.
Yep.
Best use of city money ever.
Hey, well,
I think it was federal. It was all the 150th anniversary thing.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was completely legit.
Yeah, it drew more crowds than actual Canada Day.
It did. Mostly because people hate Canada Day here.
It was
so
also
busy.
It was a torrential downpour on Canada Day, and it was beautiful the entire week of this.
Yeah.
So it was a little different.
Yeah, it was a wonderfully nice day, and when they shot steam on you, it was wonderfully refreshing. Like they shot water, and it's like, oh, I feel nice now.
Yeah, and it was amazing, that level of crowd interaction.
Oh yeah, the amount of volunteers they had. They were it was kind of interesting because it was literally they had a bunch of people holding ropes, just volunteers holding ropes, walking along with the rope. So there was this cordoned off area, and then people were walking in between them and all kinds of stuff. There's cops everywhere on bikes and all kinds of stuff.
But that was kind of interesting, and a very different approach to the way they usually do these kind of things. It was just all of downtown was kind of open for pedestrians, and then this thing moved through it. It's not like there was some huge cordoned off area around it. You could get up within feet.
Yeah, totally. And it was really sweet. They actually had a bunch of volunteers who were holding lost kids signs and all that kind of stuff. So they were really prepared, I think, for all of the potential outcomes. I agree. The live musicians were very much an unexpected surprise, but it was super cool seeing this guy like floating in the air with his double bass.
Oh yeah, just 30 feet up there.
He had like he had his
crazy.
music like taped to the underside of the. It's like a canopy, right? And he had his music like taped to the canopy and was like flipping through it with like clips and everything. It was hilarious.
Yeah, so that was a pretty amazing experience in Ottawa.
Yeah.
Something that we don't often get. Ottawa is usually considered pretty boring.
Yeah. So yeah.
So yeah, we were gonna have a guest this week for this book, and we will for the next half. But unfortunately, our good friend Mike was not able to make it because he got home really late from a civic holiday weekend camping trip.
Yeah.
So I think he had a good time doing that, but unfortunately, he wasn't here or wasn't able to be here.
Yeah. That's all right.
Yeah, it'll be okay. We'll all survive. So I don't know, where did you want to start?
So this week we're reading Dress Your Family in Corduroy and Denim by David Sederais. It was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you want to give like a first impression before we start going through it more?
I like his writing style a lot. I find his stories kind of creepy.
Oh, they're definitely creepy. Like he's playing for sure to that kind of black humor.
Yeah.
Like almost a little bit too far, but like it's that kind of slight transgression that makes it interesting.
So I will specify that I was going to listen to it, but the audiobook was like $20 and I was like, I don't know. So yeah, that didn't happen. I'm gonna see if I can maybe figure out a way to get like one or two of the stories from the next half, or maybe even from this half, just get a couple to sort of compare contrast for next episode. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
You'll enjoy that because it's like his performance of him reading his own stories about himself kind of adds an extra level to it.
Sure.
And so that's, I guess, something that's interesting and I've noticed. The entire thing really is all like anecdotes about his life,
right?
All the way back to his childhood. I think how old is he in the first one? He's like 6 or something like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's in elementary school, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, he's old enough that he was wandering around outside on his own, but So anyway, yeah. So they're anecdotes, and they usually have they're like examining some aspect of normal society, of kind of the things you do every day, but then with something usually stripped away to make it like impossibly bizarre or dark or depressing, or just uncomfortable. Like the last one, I think is probably the one you're referring to most as the creepiest one.
Not even.
Really?
No.
Which one did you think was the creepiest?
So that's not what I wanted to do. I want this window. So the strip poker one was super creepy.
Okay, yes, that was definitely weird.
Yeah. So that one had a lot of weirdness. I thought the slumlord one was really strange as well.
The slumlord one was like way too real.
Yeah, and then the girl next door one was odd.
Yeah, so did you want to go through those then, maybe?
Yeah, sure.
Like if you want. So what was the slumlord one?
Oh god, no, stop. Okay, I fixed it.
Oh yeah, so okay, that's right. Yeah, so the first one that you're talking about, the strip poker one, was a story called Full House.
Yeah, I have the list up as well.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes.
I forgot to take notes because I was on the bus when I was reading.
Oh, geez.
Oh well, we'll be all right.
You gotta schedule some time.
Hey, at least I read it in advance this time.
That is good. That is, I mean, only one failure out of so far, but you know, it's slipping, man. We're both slipping. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah. So, yeah, Full House, interesting story. It's like he's in what, grade 6 at this point? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He says he's in grade 6. It starts kind of about describing his unusual family because his parents were very not the like typical, I don't know, 60s parents. He's growing up in the 60s.
Yeah.
He describes it as being raised by 2 house cats because his parents would just like fall asleep when they got tired, and that could mean they run for 30 hours and then just he finds his mother asleep on the floor, like next to the couch, not even all the way on it.
Yeah.
And so I guess because of that, he kind of has a hard time relating to other kids his age about how their families operate, and that's actually a recurring theme.
Yeah.
Through a lot of his stories is how different he thinks his family is, but also how much his perception of his own family as being kind of the standard makes him, at least at first, look at everyone else as kind of being weird.
Yeah, but I almost. So I feel like his perception of his. So I feel like no matter whether or not he's talking about someone. In a lot of ways, the way he describes his family is like when he's talking about people who are richer than him, they're the poor family, and when he's talking about people poorer than him, they're the rich family. Like, there's never a scenario in which he identifies his family as being similar to any other family.
Yeah, it's all about how people are, or how he sets them apart from him, or him from them, I guess.
Yeah, so like I feel like there's very much a clear, like, he's like setting himself as like, my family was always different. I'm different. Like,
yeah, he plays on that like outsider vibe a lot.
Yeah. Oh,
at least in this first half, where it's interesting because he goes from being the person on the inside and viewing those outsiders to, by like the last story, completely flipped.
Yeah. And I am not surprised that he's pretentious and full of himself in vain. I mean, he literally wrote what, like six books about himself.
Yeah,
like,
and he
really?
just recently released his diaries, like slightly edited, but basically just his diaries as a thing to buy. And I haven't read it. I have a copy of it, but I don't know. It definitely speaks of a lot of time spent on it, thinking about himself.
Yep, for sure. I mean, his entire career is basically made on talking about himself and his family, right?
For sure, yeah. Oh, and to a limited extent, the kind of comment that has on the rest of America.
Yeah.
On like society in general, I guess, but that's for sure. Well, maybe not. I don't think it's the main thing.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't think it would be the main focus.
But yeah, so yeah, that story, it's important to like go over a little bit of the detail of it.
Sure.
And why it's so creepy, right?
Yeah. Because,
like, so he, yeah, so he, as a 6th grader, gets invited to the popular kids sleepover party, and that's another thing that he talks about a lot, is the popular kids that he is not.
Yeah.
So yeah, so he goes to the party, and it's all boys, and for some reason they decide to play strip poker. This is the only part that I found 100% implausible.
Well, it's not even that they decide to play strip poker. They decide to play strip poker and don't know how to play poker.
Yeah, so I mean, I believe I can see that, because it totally plays like I don't know what to call it, like a John Hughes movie, right?
Yeah, I can see that.
Everyone just is bluffing that they know how to play poker, but Sederais just happens to be the best at bluffing.
Yeah.
And so every hand he gets, no matter how ridiculous and poor it would be in real poker, he always argues and like rules lawyers some made up excuse for it to be the winning hand, which means that pretty shortly he's the only one fully dressed and the rest of them are like down in their underwear. And then when one of them is finally fully naked, there's kind of a bit of bickering about, you know, whether he should stay in the game, and if so, like what happens if he loses. And because Sederais keeps winning, he makes up a bunch of
Yeah.
I don't know what to describe them as, just like sexualized things that the other people don't realize are sexualized, like sitting on his lap.
Yeah, like it's just a thing of like why would he do that? He was uncomfortable, he wanted out of the scenario. Why didn't he get himself out of the scenario?
Well, it was a power trip because finally he was the center of attention. But like as he says, he only realized afterwards that now he just looked incredibly creepy.
Yeah. And he did.
Right? Like he didn't have the self-awareness in the moment. He was just trying to kind of gratify his own desires and not realizing that everyone else thought it was odd.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I thought there were relatable moments, questions that I
So that's the thing.
like-
Like I very much agree. I feel like there was a lot of subtle nuance to a lot of his observations, which I really enjoyed. So things like the way that he described how people talked and what they meant by a smile or meant by a tone. Like I really liked that stuff because I felt it was very real. Like it was nuanced to real life. Like you understood.
It sounded like when he heard someone say something, he must have just written it down like right then, because it's so much exactly the way people actually speak. I think like the best example of that is in the story that came before Full House, which was The Ship Shape, which has my favorite line of all of the entire book in it.
I made a mistake when I was reading The Ship Shape.
How's that?
So when I was reading, I forget if it was in the end of Let Us Know or the beginning of Ship Shape, but I ended up going to Wikipedia and I wanted to see who his siblings were, because I was like, how many siblings does he even have? Because they never really number them or anything like that. It just kind of like it goes on and then he names a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And so I ended up reading about his sister Tiffany, who actually committed suicide a few years ago.
Yeah, so he had 5 other siblings.
Yeah.
4 sisters, 1 brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, that was like, was that even a full year ago?
I thought it was in 2013.
Oh, I didn't think it was that long. Oh, that sounds like like you looked it up.
It's right here. Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to know more about, like, I kind of was curious about what happened, so I went and looked at it, and I found another essay of his, which I didn't realize. So I thought it was unrelated, but I didn't realize that it actually covers a lot of the same stuff that The Ship Shape does.
Like that same time period?
It's about the house on the island sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
But it was actually a better story than The Ship Shape.
Why do you think that?
So it had all of the stuff the Ship Shape had, but it presented it in a much more interesting way. Because I didn't super care about how his dad never kind of came through on the house. Like he makes a big point of that at the end of that story. But the other one was about his sister and like them getting together on the house, and he actually buys a house when he's there, and like it's this whole thing, and it does all the stuff with the puns and all that other things.
Okay. But yeah, as Stittsville's pointing out in the chat, sometimes if you get a second pass at it,
Yeah.
it's like it's another however many revisions that he does on that.
Yeah. So
but that's interesting.
Yeah, it's an article called "Now We Are 5." And I can link it in the chat there. It's from the New Yorker.
Yeah, and that's actually where a lot of his materials published or was published originally.
I think he's published 60 or so essays in the New Yorker or something like that.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah. So well, and it was about his sister and the way that he interacted with his sister and the way that he interacted with his family. So I felt like that story spoke to me a little bit more, like the way I understood it and the way that it impacted me was more relevant than the ship shape.
Yeah, because the ship shape was more about more about the father than about the siblings' relationship.
Yeah.
Although it touched on that, right? Like the way each of them created their own name for this theoretical cottage that they were going to buy.
Yeah.
And they just kind of stuck to that.
Yeah. And yeah, I know Cecilia, like, he talks about a little bit in this story, like in this book so far. I think he's mentioned it once or twice, but yeah, she had a lot of issues with being mentally ill. And actually, and Now We Are Five goes a lot more. He briefly mentions it when he's talking about the aunt's money, about how the great aunt paid for her reform school, Tiffany's reform school. So he goes into more detail about that in Now We Are Five.
I take it because he mentions it or describes it as being particularly terrible.
Yeah.
Like unpleasant.
Like possibly traumatizing.
Oh yeah, okay. Because I don't know, I definitely got like the sense of military school.
It's like
kind
military school, but not military. But yeah.
Yeah, you're basically in jail.
Yeah.
And also high school, which is pretty fucking crazy, frankly.
Yeah. For sure.
High school's intense enough without it also being jail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Sorry, I mentioned that particular story has, at least for me, like the most memorable line of the entire thing.
Sure.
And it was right at the beginning when Sederais and his mother are in line somewhere, and the woman in front of them is talking to the cashier, I want to say, about something. She mentions that she's here, staying in her home. Well, one of my homes.
Yeah.
And then that becomes like the whole theme of the first, or of most of that story, about just how that tone conveys these particular meanings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like that if I heard someone say that, that would stick with me at least as much as it did with them, just because it's so pretentious, and maybe not intentional, but like, damn.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I know exactly what you mean. But yeah, it's so weird because in a lot of ways, like, his parents own multiple homes.
Well, yeah, not by that point.
No, but they ended up doing it.
For sure, yeah. And I actually, in a later story, I don't know for sure whether it was a callback or not, but actually it was in Money Changes Everything, when they're going and they're talking to their older aunt, and Sederais' mother says, these are my children. Well, some of my children.
Yeah.
And I just like, I noted, like, is this a callback to that? One of my homes. I don't think it was.
I don't think it was, but I could see how you would. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of it loops back on itself in a certain way, the way that his stories often do, where the beginning and the end will come back and touch on that same theme or point.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, Ship Shape definitely about how each member of that family was uniquely bizarre.
Yeah.
And all in totally different directions. Yeah, definitely, like, anyone who's seen a good Dave Chappelle stand-up, or like,
yeah,
really anyone who knows what they're doing, they'll drop something in near the beginning and then they'll pull it out at the end as the big reveal punchline. So that's totally what he tries to do. It doesn't always work. A lot of his stories are kind of rambling.
I would agree, because I feel like he gets on a good roll and then he stops and goes back.
Well, he has like pivots, where the stories change completely in the direction that you thought they were going to go.
Yeah.
Like well, I mean most of them honestly, but the Slummus Lordicus,
Yep.
it's totally turned in a way that I didn't expect it to. Where
Yeah.
they buy a bunch of condos, and then it ends up basically becoming uh like public housing. And so like their dream of owning all this property suddenly becomes trying to manage all the government funding and stuff. So they're more concerned about bureaucracy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, and then of course that it pivots again with the worst tenant, the nightmare tenant, Lance,
Yeah.
which is just a name that I don't know, man. Those are warning bells right there.
Yeah. 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 The
It's a
timing
leather
of
tie.
the timing of all that is like oh, our tenant is no longer here, and this other family shows up and like immediately wants to rent the place. And
Yeah,
yeah, he's real cheap.
he's super cheap. Like the cheapest. Yeah, like there's. Oh yeah, did you count in your lunch breaks for that? There's no way you were actually cutting lawns for like a full 8 hours. That's impossible.
No, I like the like. I'll pay you $300 for the day, but I'm only gonna give you $220, and I'll give you a tax form.
Yeah, exactly. Everything is just dinging him for nickels and dimes, left, right, and center.
It's like if you said
It's
300
just-
for the day, it's 300 for the day, man.
No, nope, not anymore. There's no handshake.
I
Doesn't count.
well, I was and like you take it to the complete extreme where it's like, oh yeah, that fight I was just about to get in. Yeah, you weren't doing anything during that, so I'm not paying you for it.
Yeah, exactly. You're just standing there watching. Why did you not beat up the guy who's trying to fight me? God, yeah. But then they turn around and just cut up the dead tree on the lawn, which is what they were there for to begin with.
Hey Jason, good to see you,
Hello.
man.
Yeah.
I guess we'll just give a brief introduction real quick.
Yeah.
So this is a Rewrite Book Club. So every month we read about a book every month and a half. And this week we're doing Dress Your Family in Corduroy and Denim by David Sederais. So we read this bad boy and now we're discussing it.
And I would say absolutely everyone should read the piece before. But you don't have to, obviously. Can't make you.
Yeah.
But they're all good books, except for the last one we read, which was
Yeah.
a good book, but not very interesting for us anyway.
Yeah. We should at some point we should make a list like that's easy
Yeah.
for people to access.
That's a good idea. Yeah, well, we should set something up on Goodreads maybe,
Yeah, we should do that.
because that's pretty easy to do. And Goodreads is if people out there don't already use it for finding books and keeping track of what they've read, it is exceptional and really easy, and doesn't cost anything, which is the best part.
Yeah. So yeah. So you would think the ship shape would be your favorite?
I don't know. I actually really liked the last one just for the absurd shock value of it.
Yeah. To be
And-
honest, I felt like he was the most normal in that story.
Yeah, well, and that one, so that happens considerably later than the other stories, like by 5 to 8 years, I would say.
At least.
Like he's in his mid-20s,
Yeah.
I want to say, and he's living on his own. He's not in the crappy apartments that he talks about in the other story where he gets kicked out in Hijira.
I mean,
So he's in, like-
how often did that guy move?
Clearly a lot. but he had a lot of problems. He didn't have a steady income, and he did a lot of drugs, like all sorts of stuff, pretty
Yeah.
much everything. Not just the cheap stuff.
Well, it seems
which I don't
like,
understand
It
how-
seems like a lot of his family did.
Yeah,
I'm not entirely convinced that his parents didn't do drugs either.
Man, it's hard to say. Plus, that was the 60s. So, you know, I don't know. I don't know the demographics on that, is what I'm saying.
That's fair.
But yeah, so the last one, man, yeah, and definitely it's the one where David Sedaris looks the most normal because he is put into such an outlandish scenario.
Yeah.
Where he works cleaning apartments in New York, and it's like generally people don't want to be there when the cleaning person or like maid or whoever is there cleaning their house. So, you know, he says usually that they'd hide in the back room or they'd go out and let him do whatever. But he gets to this one apartment, and this is an apartment, a job, I guess, that someone called him or contracted him to do after they heard him on the radio reading about one of his pieces, and he had mentioned that he cleans apartments, and so he thought this guy called him up because of that. So he gets to this apartment, and the guy opens the door, and he's like, you know, drenched in sweat. The apartment is 30, 40 degrees centigrade. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. At 1,000. Yeah. It's 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and the guy just kind of gives him this weird eyeball, and you know, brings him into the apartment. And then like it just kind of gets creepier and creepier from there. This guy keeps mentioning this weird like resort called Fire Island, and he gives him this brochure with a lot of oiled up dudes on it.
I like the pamphlet, dudes in thongs on a cruise ship.
Yeah, it sounds like a cartoon. I don't know, something out of Rick and Morty is what it sounded like to me, but in real life. It's two brothers on a cruise ship. Just two brothers. I don't know. And yeah, so that was what I got from that. And then like, you know, the guy won't leave him alone, and Sederais goes into his bedroom to clean up, and like it's a disaster, and there's all sorts of gay porn like everywhere on every surface. Yeah. And he just cannot figure out how this guy appears to have no shame, but he's like, whatever, okay, I'm in his house, I'm just gonna do the job. Until the guy puts on a tape, in like a porn tape, while Sederais is cleaning, and just starts furiously masturbating to it. And Sederais just turns around and keeps vacuuming, like, oh shit, I need this paycheck, but damn, this is some messed up business. And eventually the guy like stops and comes over, and he's like, we're finished here. And there's like, I need to keep vacuuming the floor. You're like, no man, we're done. And so it turns out
then they become friends.
Yeah, then they become friends because each has mutually been so horrendously embarrassed by this scenario that like that they just kind of want to know what the hell is up.
Yeah,
right.
They finally get past all that awkwardness of not being sure what to do, and they're just like, okay, so what just happened? What is this about?
Yeah, and so the guy, in a roundabout way, reveals that he had heard this interview with David, and then had gone and I guess seen an ad. Yeah, he wrote it down, and then he saw a different ad for an erotic maid service, and wrote that down on the same note, and had just confused the numbers. So when he called David Sedaris to clean his apartment, he actually thought he was basically calling, I don't know, a stripper / hooker. It's somewhere in between that nexus.
Yeah, he was calling an escort of some sort.
Yeah, of whatever level of engagement that was. And it's not clear whether it was supposed to be just like vacuuming while he's there or what. But the fact that they both can kind of in the worst phrasing possible, come together over this and you know, like get past the weird embarrassment.
Yeah.
I don't know. It felt like a more extreme version of stuff that kind of happens when you're out in the real world. You know, someone says something to you and you say, you too, and it makes no sense or whatever. But this is like the ultimate extreme.
Well, I mean, that's exactly what this was. It's like a really messed up story, but at the same time, it's very much like, you know I've personally been in those awkward scenarios where you don't really want to ask what's going on because you don't want to you don't want to embarrass the person.
Yeah, and you know that you're so far out of your depth that like no action you take is gonna make it better. It's just gonna make it worse.
Yeah, so you just kind of survive until it's over, and
Yeah,
then you both kind of have that moment where you're like, okay, like I can't be more embarrassed than I am right now. So let's just have it out.
yeah. You might as well just lay all our cards on the table.
Right?
Yeah, and that was another instance of that pivot, right? Of there's kind of the two where you first you think it's about his professional career, and then you find out it's actually about this weird incident.
I was
And
kind of
then-
excited to start hearing about him actually doing something other than sitting around doing drugs.
And you mean in interacting with like really
Well,
sad children?
I was talking about the the NPR stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, and we're only just getting to that because it's the first half of the book.
Yeah.
Excuse me. In my opinion, the second half is actually like the stronger half. It's got a couple of my favorite stories.
Okay.
So yeah, look forward to 6 to 8 Black Men,
Right.
which is fairly famous. What's the name of it? There's a bunch that are about his brother, Paul, who they refer to as the Rooster, and those get hilarious and bizarre because he's a strange guy.
Well, I mean, that's not too surprising, Stitzel, because if you think about it, he got a lot of his material from working those odd jobs, right? So until you, like,
Yeah,
I know he was kind of getting established, but at the same time, like, you kind of keep delving, like, digging for gold, right? Until you've exhausted the well, or you need to get out.
well, and also he needed rent
Yeah.
because like selling a couple articles in New York to the New Yorker doesn't pay the bills forever, unfortunately. Although it should.
You think?
I don't know. Buy my articles.
I've never tried to get into New Yorker. I don't know what that's like.
I don't know if I've ever actually read a New Yorker, like a physical New Yorker copy.
I have.
I've definitely read articles from it, but I don't know. I gotta look up how much it costs, I guess.
Publishing is rarely lucrative.
Yeah.
How true?
Well, it's lucrative for the publishers.
Yeah, it's not lucrative for everybody else.
No, that's their whole gimmick, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we talked about the siblings.
Yeah.
We talked about one of my homes. So what did you think about the way the kind of journey across the stories that we read in this half? Because to me, it felt like there was a bit of an arc to it, even though each was kind of disconnected.
I think there was definitely a sort of arc. I feel like money changes everything kind of was out of place because I feel like it should have gone in a little bit of a different order there. But I definitely do see the pattern in it. The one thing I will say is obviously he was very aware of his sexuality at a young age. And I think that's pretty clear, like at least in elementary school sort of thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. And he talks about it like it comes up frequently, like it has an actual impact, significant impact on his life.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of his personality has to do with being the only boy for a long time, where he feels a lot like an outsider, even amongst his siblings who are outsider themselves. Yeah,
because he's the youngest of them, and then Paul is younger than him, I think, right?
No, he's the second oldest, isn't he?
Is he the second? Yeah, because Amy's definitely the oldest.
Yeah, I think it's Amy, him, Lisa.
Amy Sederais, who people may know from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, or the older TV show Strangers with Candy, which I highly recommend. It's got Stephen Colbert in it as well.
Yeah,
cast is pretty solid.
Yeah, for sure. So to me, I thought it was Amy, him, Lisa, and then Gretchen, Tiffany, Paul.
Okay.
Because I'm pretty sure Tiffany's the youngest sister. And then Paul's obviously the youngest.
That's a skill testing question. And you passed.
Did I? Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the second of 6.
Okay.
Oh, no, I got the order wrong. Lisa's the oldest. So it's Lisa, him, Gretchen, Amy, Tiffany, Paul.
So that alone, like the fact that he has this huge, well, to me anyway, it seems like a huge number of siblings. I feel like that informs a lot of the stories.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of it is the different siblings kind of conspiring amongst themselves.
Yep.
And the weird factions that kind of form within the older
Yep.
3 kind of are in charge a lot of the time.
Yeah. Definitely. And that comes through in a lot of his stories, I think, of sort of they're no matter, they're always aligned to somebody. It just changes who they're aligned with.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean that happens within every family, but like when there's that many kids, you know, and they can as a group outnumber parents significantly.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, it takes on a very different dynamic.
I definitely agree with what Cecil's saying. You definitely see how the mother's progresses. Like the mother is almost has the real character arc throughout the stories.
Yeah, she changes in her relationship with the kids a lot.
She changes her relationship with her husband a lot.
Yeah, it kind of feels like everyone gets pulled in different directions as it goes along, and they all kind of lose that cohesiveness that you can feel in the early stories, like Let It Snow.
Yeah. Did she work, or was she a stay-at-home mom?
Well, I don't remember at the very beginning, but like by the time they own the property and stuff, she's basically running it all.
Yeah.
With the father as more or less the handyman.
Yeah. Okay. Stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. I figured that, but I just wanted to confirm. Because it's not like it's ever kind of stated as far as I noticed in this part. So that was definitely a thing. Yeah, 6 kids.
Yeah, a lot of kids, man.
Yeah. She obviously, Cecil was saying, alcoholism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A point that he doesn't really approach directly, I don't think.
No, but I think it was mentioned in that sort of when they're like locked outside of the snow and Let It Snow, and then again in
yeah, I don't know, the Let It Snow moment felt like so the kids the mother takes all the kids outside and says go play in the snow because they're in North Carolina, and an inch of snow shuts the entire city down. So they go out and they make snowmen and do that stuff. And then when they come home, they realize that the mother's locked all the doors and she's watching TV and having a glass of wine.
Day 5 of them being off school, right? Like they've been off.
That's
school
right.
For
Yeah.
like a week.
Yeah. There's a week because it's like 5 below zero, and North Carolina is simply not equipped to deal with that because it's normally extremely warm there.
Yeah.
So when he and Gretchen, I want to say, look in the window, they see the mother watching TV and having a glass of wine and a cup of coffee, of course, because the coffee offsets the wine and then it doesn't count, which is true. Yeah, exactly. It was like the Ontario ice storm, except totally insignificant.
Yeah.
But the same impact.
But then they mention the wine and all that stuff again when he's talking about his parents' sleeping habits.
Yes. Yeah, they definitely drank a lot.
Yeah.
Like it's there. And even when a kid that young is starting to see it and kind of question it, that means it's a bit of something.
Yeah. So that I definitely noticed.
Oh yeah, so and Get Out of the House Now. I was definitely talking with one of our fellow employees, uh, about this Chelsea, about that particular story.
Yeah.
And she's just recently had a child, and she definitely interesting reaction of like, oh shit, that sounds amazing. The kid just like, they're just not there for all sorts of hours. That's like, of course, it's exactly what I would do. So like, you know, there's some real shit that's reverberating down the decades here.
Yeah. I know my cousin has talked a little bit about that, where her husband will come home and she'll just go out for an hour after spending the day.
Yeah,
just
to have some time.
Yeah, just to collect herself and, you know, relax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So super real.
Super
Oh man, I think someone's running like a diesel generator right outside my window. Hold on a second.
Yeah. So I don't see this book as being that funny to me.
No?
No,
Because there were like laugh out loud moments for me when I was reading through.
yeah, it was one of those things where like I was reading it and I was like kind of like I was waiting for the like real punchline to get me, so that I could be like you guys. But I was like, I don't know, it's all right. I'm enjoying it. I don't super dislike it, but you know, it wasn't
I felt like
laugh
a lot of the
out
time,
loud to me.
a lot of the time, the lack of a punchline kind of was the punchline.
Mm.
It was very much, at least to me, like a haha, that's the joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a lot of him, a lot of stories where he is the butt of his own jokes.
Yeah. Definitely. So we were talking about this before, but we can do it now. This is again a sort of semi-autobiographical tale. That's the word.
Biographical, yeah.
Just like Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance was.
True, yeah.
I think they're actually very similarly written, style-wise.
I feel like the approach is similar, but like obviously the way that it's written is quite different. Like the actual prose of it.
Yeah, so I guess what I mean by that is it's written to be very clear in short, distinct sentences. Like it's very approachable in the same way.
And every word that doesn't absolutely need to be there is gone.
Yeah. So, you know, when he's describing something, he's describing it for a very specific reason. Like, there's a lot of that going on. Obviously, this is a very different experience because this one wasn't like a pain to get through, like Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance was.
It was. He wasn't trying to shove a philosophy lesson down your throat at the same time.
Was he? Not?
It was. Well, there's a lesson there. There's like a. I don't want to say a moral, but you know what I mean. Like there's an understated theme to each of his pieces and threads that run through all of them. But he wasn't like interrupting the narrative of the story the way that that the author was in Motorcycle, and like inserting this whole lesson, like consciously inserting a lesson.
Because I personally feel like they're equally pretentious.
I don't know. I found at least David Sederais is like based in the real world, whereas I thought Persig I thought Persig was frankly out of his mind by about halfway through that book.
Well, yeah, for sure. The only reason the only reason I'm bringing it up is because David Sedaris has kind of littered the book with like small thoughts that kind of irk me in a weird way. Like the end of oh god, what was it? Consider the Stars, where he gets hit by the rock.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, where he's like, "Oh yeah, my dentist in Paris." Blah 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 blah. And I know he lives at the time when he was writing this, he lived in Paris, but
he lives there, so it's.
But it's just the way he wrote it. It seemed very much like I was like, "Ha, I live in Paris now, jerk."
There's no doubt some component of that, like of him finally getting to say, like, "Yeah, I made it."
Yeah.
and I don't know that I wouldn't do the same. Like, I don't think I'm above that.
Yeah. I don't know if I am either. It's just it was a lot of there's like little moments like that I just felt like he was like, hey, look at me.
I will say, having read a lot of his other stuff, that when he mentions he lives in Paris, like, that isn't what he means. Like,
Yeah.
he's kind of ends up adopting the Parisian attitude of Paris, or the French attitude of Paris, which is that Paris is gross and overly dense, and like, he actually lives outside the city.
Yeah. I mean, he
lives
doesn't
in, like,
live in
a kind of-
Paris anymore, but yeah.
No, he lives in England now.
Yeah.
He moved. But yeah, I don't get the sense that he's pitching it as, like, glamorous.
Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, and we'll get to that. We'll get to the second half of the book. Talks more about when he lived in France and the interesting language barriers that he runs into. Not necessarily because people don't speak English, but because they choose not to.
Yeah. So for sure.
Which I feel we're, like, uniquely situated to appreciate. So yeah, did you, like I said, I thought my favorite one was Bloodwork, which is that last one. Did you have a particular favorite?
I'd say I don't even know. I like lots of parts of stories, but I wouldn't necessarily say an overall one was better in my opinion than the others.
Was there anything that you thought was, like, especially memorable?
I really like that first part about the family who doesn't believe in TV. Like, I really liked a lot of his observations about them as people. So I liked a lot of that. I liked the weirdness of the mother, like, walking down the street in their robe trying to find them in the snowstorm. Like,
with the one
slippers or whatever, and loses it. Yeah. I agree with you in the ship shape. Like, I liked sort of their perception of the house and how they all thought of it differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked a lot of Consider the Stars. Like, I thought that was an interesting observation of, like, the parents march him down and he's like, oh my god, and all that jazz, right?
Yeah, I feel like we've all been in that situation. Like, and that was another one of those very relatable moments.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't really like the Slumlord one. Mostly because I felt like a lot of the attitudes in it were a little dated. Obviously, he's writing from memory, and so the attitudes would have been dated. But, like, it kind of brought me out of it a little bit.
What do you mean?
Just like the way you, like, it has a lot to do with the racial stuff that they talk about in that book. And he's not being racist. Like, don't get me wrong. It's just the attitudes seem very old fashioned to me. So.
Yeah, I think that was, like, at the latest in the 80s.
In the early 80s, I think. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like I'm not saying it made me uncomfortable or anything like that. I was taken aback because it was very different.
Well, he played it like, very much on the surface. The things that were kind of boiling along underneath, he'd pull up and then lay them kind of bare. I thought that was, or it felt more like that's what he was trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would agree. I would agree with you, Cecil, for sure. I was intrigued by The Girl Next Door. I thought it was interesting. I thought him talking about his habits was very interesting. I thought the neighbor was interesting to a certain extent. I wanted to know more. And I felt kind of let down that, like, he kind of booked it. Because I wanted to see more layers.
Yeah, I kind of felt the ending to that was Well, and as real as it was a little disappointing that he didn't kind of stick it out.
Yeah.
But
I also
you know,
found it
that's
interesting that he basically like was afraid of a 9-year-old.
yeah, but like it's the impact that that 9-year-old could have on his actual life, and that the impact that she did was the most horrifying part of the whole thing, right? Like that was the central kind of problem to be solved in that story, was how does he address this insane imbalance in power between him and a child,
Yeah.
where he's the one who has no power.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, you know, she.
I'm not saying he should. I just want. It was one of those things that it left me wanting to know more, and unfortunately, there will never be more.
That's one of the things about these stories, I guess. That's the best parts for me. It was that like they're real. These things happened at least pretty close to the way that he described them, if not identically. So like, you know, it's kind of a slice of life, but of real life.
Yeah.
And not just a fictionalized slice of someone's potential theoretical life. This,
Yeah.
you know, this is his world.
Yep. And then I enjoyed Bloodwork. I thought it was funny because it was ridiculous.
Oh yeah, and it gets so much crazier, like in the second half, when that not in that kind of level of extreme kind of shock value, but in terms of how his perspective on strange situations gets really neat.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I got a lot of weird feedback. I hope you guys can't hear that.
I didn't hear it.
Okay, good.
So yeah. So I think overall I've liked this book. I wouldn't say I think it's amazing or anything like that. It's another. I really like the prose, and I would like to learn more about how to write like that, because I find myself wordy in the wrong ways.
Yeah, it takes a lot of work to turn something from the way that you write it initially into something that sounds like that.
Yeah. I wonder if
like
it comes from a very radio perspective, because it does seem very conversational. And if he knew, which I think he did for most of these, that he was going to probably be reading them out loud, they wrote them a little bit differently.
I don't know. Because since a lot of them were written for like print for a New Yorker, you know, it was going to be in a magazine.
But they do
yeah,
a lot of like they do audio versions of a lot of his New Yorker stuff.
Oh, okay. I mean, so it's hardly impossible, but I don't think, or at least I think he just writes in a particular voice that reads out loud really well.
Yeah.
And of course, if he's reading his own stuff, he knows the intonation that he meant to put into that, or at least can kind of reimagine it when he goes back over it.
Yeah.
So it's a little different, but yeah, I don't know. He's got a really good style.
In a lot of ways,
that reads easily.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, his style, and I'm sure Stitz will correct me here, but it reminds me a lot of CBC Radio storyteller Bob Kerr. Not Bob Kerr. What's the guy's name? I can't remember his name. I always mess it up. He died last year.
Bob the Builder.
No. God, why can
I... was it Robert Paulson?
No.
Was it the Joker?
Stuart McLean.
Okay. I was close.
Yes. So I feel like stylistically wise, his stories are very similar in that they kind of have that weird rambliness, but they have an overall theme and a point, and you're going to get to that point, and they're designed to be, maybe not all of it, but the way that a few of the audience members have described it, where they're saying, you know, it's better to listen to it than it is to even read it. And I think Stuart McLean is the same way, where, you know, you want to hear his delivery of it, because it's how he delivers it that makes it interesting and funny more so than what's actually being said.
For sure. Yeah, and like we pointed out with a bunch of these things, it's all about that tone of the line being delivered, and not necessarily just the line.
Yeah, because I haven't
Yeah,
listened to too much Stuart McLean, but the few bits that I have heard, like I've heard several hours worth, are very good, and I enjoyed them, and they're insightful in the same way that these are, where it's a subtle insight, but it's that little bits that are really important. Where he talks about art and his feeling to, like, the story. One of my favorite stories that I read was about his son-in-law doing an art gallery show. And his son-in-law took photos of roadkill.
Oh,
and it was gruesome and weird and all kinds of strange and beautiful, and like, so they leave this gallery and he's not sure what to say and all this stuff, and he ends up being talked into going for a drive with the son-in-law, and they do it, and they find this. I forget what animal it was, but they find an animal, and he like pulls over, and they start taking pictures, and the character, the main character, whose name I can't remember, but they're always the same cast sort of thing, and he's taking photos, and he starts to understand the art, but he talks about it in a very like approachable way, the way that he understands it. It's not like he suddenly can be verbose and academic about it, but he's just like, the way he understands it is very approachable, and it's very interesting.
That could definitely be fascinating.
Yeah, it was a very good story.
In the car with someone who just pulls over to take pictures of dead animals, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, it's a very interesting story, and I do recommend you check it out if you get the chance. This is not very long. I think it's only like 10-15 minutes maybe.
Oh, that's definitely worth a listen.
Yeah. So I think in a lot of ways the Sederais stuff reminds me of that sort of approachability, but very insightful. Like very observation heavy.
Yeah. Oh, it's all like the core of it is those observations and his weird perspectives on it. But actually, I think a lot of it is the way that he presents both how there were multiple perspectives in that moment, and then almost more importantly, how he realizes afterwards that his perceptions at the time were flawed or straight up wrong or whatever. So there's like this dimensionality to the way he writes over time as well. And I don't know if that's present in like this CBC guy's stories.
Yeah, I think his stories are designed to be more. Stuart McLean's stories are designed to be more like narrative heavy, like a little less rambly, a little bit more narrative.
Yeah, that makes because Sederais is like juxtaposing things side by side and creating a
he's talking a lot about his like observations and how he felt in certain scenarios and why he did what he did, sort of thing, right? Like he's sort of psychoanalyzing himself or the people in his life.
The most dangerous game.
Yeah, no kidding. So that's definitely part of it for sure.
So I don't know if you got anything else like too deep to talk about here.
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of it. Let me just go over the stories once again to see if there's anything. I mean, we didn't talk about Hejira, which we could.
Yeah, so that was a particular, extremely short.
Yeah.
And really important in terms of the overall arc of Sederais' life at that time. I mean, it's all about him getting thrown out of his parents' house.
Yeah.
For a reason that he doesn't really understand at the time.
I mean, he thinks it's due to his drug use, mostly.
Yeah, he thinks it's one thing, but it's something totally different. And that was kind of what I was talking about how he presents his perception of the events as they're unfolding, and then we'll take a step back and look at how incorrect he was and how he kind of marvels at how wrong he could be.
Yeah, for sure. So, a question from the chat: which family member do each of you identify with most?
I don't know. I definitely relate. I feel like I relate to David Sedaris a lot. As much as I feel a lot of the time like I'm kind of viewing things from the outside and evaluating people that way rather than being part of whatever's going on.
Yeah, I don't think I identify with Sederais, like David Sederais specifically. But I don't think I know enough about the other sisters Well, I haven't really met Paul that much yet, but I don't think I've spent enough time with any of the family members to really say that I do or don't identify with them. I will say I'm definitely not the father, because I don't see his attitudes at all. But I wouldn't say I'm like the mother either, because I don't think I'm in your face in the same way she is. I don't know. That's hard to self-identify, to be honest.
Yeah, and if you haven't been exposed to a lot of his other books, it's hard to get a real grip on what the other 5 siblings are like. And we'll see that a lot more in the second half, particularly the stuff to do with Paul, a.k.a. the Rooster, in Rooster at the Hitchin Post, and some of the other ones that are very centered on specific other family members.
Sure. That makes sense.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think he might be the Rooster.
Thanks, I guess.
You'll get there. You'll see.
And then, which family member in the stories most reminds you of a member of your family? I'm actually going to say something really odd here, but I've actually met one of my grand aunts, and her name is Rosie, same as my mom. And I met her once. She's in her 90s now. She's got to be. And I met her once when I was younger, when I went over there, and she described me as, oh, you're like your father. You're obviously not one of the Horns. You got no meat on your bones, and like stuff like that. So like, in a lot of ways, she reminds me of the aunt in Money Changes Everything. Not so much that she was rich. She wasn't like rich or anything like that, but it's very much that sort of like, oh, you're one of those.
Yeah, someone looking down their nose at you.
Yeah. She was a nice lady, like, don't get me wrong, but I definitely get a similar impression. But I probably wasn't that much older than Sederais was when he went to see her either. Like I think I was 13 or something. So
yeah, I'm not really sure as far as like the other what family member is most like mine. I feel like Amy or Gretchen is kind of remind me of my own brother.
Okay.
Like, in as much as they kind of have their shit a little more settled.
I can see that. My brother is a way more responsible and settled than I am. He's also a huge drama queen. Well, he likes acting the fool is I guess the better way of putting it. You know, he'll play things up for laughs.
Okay.
For
yeah,
sure.
yeah. Like very self-aware of the scenarios he puts himself in.
Yeah. So I could see that being like Amy Sederais or someone like that whose literal job is doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, I get a different impression. Like, she seems to be the more level-headed.
Sure.
I don't know. You'll see. You'll see as we
You'll
get
see?
through, and
Okay.
if you do choose to read any of his other books or listen to them, because again, I highly recommend you listen to them. They're
I really enjoyed that piece he had in the New Yorker. I'd be kind of interested in seeing some of his newer stuff and seeing, you know, how this relates. Like, this book isn't that old, right? It's fairly
This is
recent.
from 2004.
Okay, so more than 10 years. Yeah, I think seeing some of his more recent stuff, I think would suit me more.
Well, his newer stuff is even kind of gotten weirder.
Yeah, but
like, 'cause he
it
wrote-
wasn't the weirdness that threw me off. I don't think.
I guess I mean like it's very different stylistically.
Yeah, because I really enjoyed reading Now We Are Five. Like of the book I've read so far, that's my favorite. Probably.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that observation. She's the picker up of the pieces. I could see that.
Yeah, she's totally the one who comes in and cleans up the mess after someone else has exploded.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I think that one's really fast. Like I think Now We Are Five is really fascinating, and I think it's more personal on a level that I like. Like it's a little less. It's a little less at arm's length, and I think that has to do with the deepness of the subject matter, because it is about her suicide and all that jazz, like, and their memories of that, like their memories of her. And so I think it's a little bit more sober in that way. Like it's not trying to be funny as much.
Yeah. I haven't read that article, and I'm definitely going to. And that's extra reading material for everyone out there who wants to read along.
Yeah.
Check out that article, and we can talk about that a little bit more next time as well if we want.
Sure.
And see if anyone in the chat has opinions.
Yeah, it is very related though, because it does take place over a lot of ship shape, and to a certain extent is the events that are talked about in Money Changes Everything and all that. So like I feel like it's not like a stretch. But then again, is like all of his parts of a life not really a stretch in that sense?
Yeah, since he's writing about his own the events that happened to him, it all kind of weaves together in sort of adjacent ways.
Yeah. So.
So just I guess kind of want to wrap things up here.
Sure. Okay.
I guess I'm going to call that kind of our final thoughts, unless you've got something else that you're bursting to say.
No, I've been enjoying the book. Like I said, like I don't love it or anything, but I do enjoy it, and for now that's a good change from Zen. So for sure.
Yeah. So did you have disconnected from this book? Do you have any recommendations of stuff that?
I'm currently reading a manga by the name of Seven Seeds, which is a post-apocalyptic shoujo manga, which means it's a post-apocalypse manga designed for teenage girls. And it is super fascinating because it's very much a... so basically the premise is there are 5 groups of 7 people who are put into cryogenic sleep in order to survive a second meteor hitting the Earth, like the dinosaurs sort of thing.
Okay, I see.
And so they're
one has already struck the Earth by implication.
Well, right, but another one. So there's another one coming, and they put this project in place, the Seven Seeds project, and they sleep through the meteor, and they sleep through the Earth kind of rebuilding itself and re-evolving till it gets to a point where it's habitable for humans again, and then the computer system or whatever running it lets them out.
Wait, hold on. What is this called?
It's called Seven Seeds.
What the shit? When was this published?
2003 or something.
Oh, okay. Because there was a Neil Stevenson book that came out like, I want to say 2 years ago, maybe it was 3 by this point, that was called Seven Eves, about the moon exploding and the Earth becoming uninhabitable and people having to live in space for 10,000 years before they rebuild the ecosystem and come and recolonize the Earth. Like, in broad strokes, it sounds like the identical plot.
Well, yeah.
I guarantee you it's nothing alike. But
no,
like,
I was going to say, because
really...
this is very much about, like, sort of teen drama in a way of, like, you know, they're teenagers and they're struggling to deal with a scenario that they don't understand, and the picking criteria is really weird but kind of makes sense. So, like, the people who get selected are, like athletes and, like, different, like, they're designed to like athletes and wonderkinds and like all kinds of people who aren't necessarily super social or whatever, because they're all sort of the best of the gene pool sort of thing. And like it's really weird. The creature design is crazy cool, like the ecosystems and the new ecosystems they've set up. It all takes place in like this flooded Japan where they have to use boats to cross. Like they have these like floating boat things. It's
like,
pretty
like regular boats.
well. No, they're like rafts with like tents in the middle.
Oh, okay.
I've seen them
It's
in
like
real life.
Waterworld.
They exist. They're just like it's like a weird, like inflatable.
Yeah, it sounds like a big like catamaran kind of arrangement.
Yeah, it's sort of neat, and then they build rafts and stuff. And anyway, it's cool. It's a cool book. The first volume is a little slow, but once they start getting the backstory stuff, it really picks up.
Okay, well that sounds really interesting. Especially the weird like teenage girl element of post-apocalypse, but there's still drama forever.
So yeah. What do you got? What's your recommendation
for me,
this episode?
I don't know. Did I talk about Castlevania on the last one? Was that?
I think we talked about Castlevania on Input Output.
We definitely talked about it on there. I think that's still my recommendation. It's crazy, stupid good. Just incredibly silly Castlevania anime.
All right.
I want more. There's only 4 episodes.
That's what everyone who I've heard watched it has said. I want more episodes.
Just give me more.
It's written by Warren Ellis.
Yeah, I know. Is it crazy good? It's well written, and it's like super self-aware that it's absurd.
Yeah, I love Warren Ellis.
Like the game stuff is inserted in a plausible way.
Yeah.
So there's like plenty of fan service. You know, you throw an axe and it flies around like a boomerang, just like in the games. Doesn't need to, but it does anyway.
Nice.
Yeah, so I recommend that. I mean, that's not already super hot, but if you need an additional push, just go check that out. Obviously, you should go and look at the video for La Machine that was invaded Ottawa on our channel, just to get a taste of that majesty.
Yep.
Geez, I don't know what else. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for recommendations.
Okay.
So I'll say, everyone make sure you read along so that we can talk about the last half of the book on our next episode, which is going to be the 28th of August.
Okay.
So in 3 weeks.
Sure.
Wait,
do you want August? Oh yeah, no,
yeah.
We're good. We're good. Never mind. It's the weekend after that I'm away.
Okay, good.
So we're fine. I had a moment there where I was like, oh.
Yeah, and definitely, yeah. So tune in for that. We will have, ideally, our guest, our good friend Mike, who's been reading this book along with us and just couldn't quite make it this time. So next time will be him. I don't know. I guess we'll talk about the next book after in the next episode. We got that planned out a little bit. Yeah, it's gonna be something a little different from anything we've read so far.
Yep.
Which is kind of the point. So that should be interesting.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. Give your shout out, Sam.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So for all you people who want to hear or keep track of anything that we're doing, you can follow me on Twitter at MC Pepperpockets.
Yep. And you can follow me at FreakLabMishap, as well as on accidentalorigin.com and here on this Twitch channel.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us, everyone. And we will see you for the next episode.
Bye, guys.
Bye.